welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Joining us on the Newsmaker line is a gentleman who just returned to the ring, maybe one time only, this past Saturday at IZW Psycho Circus to team up with his friend in the tribe one more time, the Navajo Warrior. Of course, I am speaking about the Hawaiian Lion. Are you with me, sir?
I am with you.
It's such a pleasure to have you on. Rare occasion that my wife ended up setting up an interview, so I appreciate you doing this with me. I appreciate you doing this.
Well, I figured it was a tag team effort, so got to respect the game.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, how did it feel to get back in the ring after a couple of years this past Saturday night?
Well, just to kind of go off what you just said about possibly one time, a match was just announced today. Well, a team was just announced today. Myself and GQ Gallo are going to team up at the next IZW show. And we were, at one point, the Native Warriors, very early in my career. And going back to basically when I first started. And, we're going to team up in November on the Last Mile at the Long Live the King. But we don't have an opponent yet, so we're waiting to find that out.
That's very cool. So I guess it felt all right getting back in the ring then.
Yeah, it felt really good. I went to the show where Nav and Gallo teamed up against the Ballards, and it just brought back so many memories. And, with Navajo Warrior going out, and he was the one that, trained me, bringing me in and giving me so much knowledge over the years that, I couldn't say no. I've kind of inserted myself into his game plan there, so I'm glad he took me in.
Awesome. It's funny that you mentioned Gallo, because Gallo I had on about a year ago, a little bit less than a year ago. I had on Navajo, and I had on Dom Vitale, who was another tag team partner of Gallo. So for some reason, I'm very Gallo heavy on the show in the past year. But he's doing great, and he's one of the security guards for all of the wrestling, as well as helping out with PCW over here in Mesa, which is where I am.
Well, we had such a strong group in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. We were just going out and getting everything we could. We were, a bunch of us were going back and forth to Japan, working TVs. So Navajo raised some good wrestlers.
I would say he did, absolutely. So I always ask people this question, and some people have an instinct, a moment where they knew this was what was for them. What was it about pro wrestling, and what was the moment that you realized pro wrestling was something that you wanted to do with your life?
God, are you talking back when I was a kid, or are you talking about when I first...
Kid. Yeah, whatever the case is. Whenever the first time was that you fell in love with this thing.
Honestly, I think the story's probably all the same across the board, where, I was watching wrestling as a kid and, you got captivated. I remember flashes of the AWA, and I want to say Buddy Rose and those guys, that, probably 85, 86, watching the AWA on TV. And then I was always, taken by wrestling. So when I got into high school, of course I wanted to wrestle, and I had a friend that with me all the way through grade school, and our plan was to become wrestlers. And we walked into the wrestling room, and we don't see a ring or anything, and it's got this mat, and we've got our singlets on, and we just grabbed singlets and went in, and my buddy was like, "Where's the ring?" And the coach was like, "Oh, this isn't that kind of wrestling." And he literally just turned around and walked out. No other thought about it. But I stayed and eventually, went through the ranks and did well, and wrestled in the Army and wrestled in college. But when I was in the Army, I don't know if you've heard of any of those carny stories, the carnival stories, where they would have the carnival workers. Mm-hmm. And I went to a fair in Germany when I was stationed in Germany, and they had a guy named Cosmos there that was just literally out of the past, and he had big burly dude, barrel chest, hairy, big handlebar mustache, and I volunteered to wrestle. And as soon as we locked up, he the only American word he knew, the English word he knew, was business. And from then on, I mean, he threw me around a little bit. I wrestled with him, but you could tell he was calling the shots. But from then on, I couldn't think of anything else I wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
And it was a few years later that I got out of the Army and went to college and everything. And then a trainer walked into my gym named CC Star, who unfortunately passed away last year. But he connected to me with Navajo and Gallo and those guys, and then the rest is kind of history.
My condolences on your loss, by the way. I did not know that about CC Star. Thanks for letting me know. I'll add him to my rest in peace section on the website. So here we are, and then we would have been in the same building together. Would have been in IZW in that mid 2000s, because I was working at the Arizona State University radio station, and I would report a little bit on what was happening with IZW, because you guys were running shows not too far off campus at the sets. And that was a great place for you guys. I saw many shows there, and I know that you defeated Navajo Warrior for your first Impact Zone Wrestling World Championship. What was it like to beat your former teacher, your former trainer, for one of the coveted titles?
Well, it was so early in my career at the time that it was an honor even just being considered for that spot. I think I was a little cockier back then and thought I could do anything. But if you're talking about guys you want to be in the ring with and learn from, and have the honor of having that match and winning your first title from, it doesn't really get any better than Navajo Warrior. And I don't think you're going to find anybody that would say differently. And knowing that, he was gracious enough to give me that shot and give me that honor, I'll be forever grateful. I still was so new. I didn't even know, the ins and outs of the business. And, that takes years and years and years. And I don't think you ever learn all of it, but, anything I had a question about, he was right there.
Very cool. And he trained you guys right. You guys learn the old school logic. And when you watch wrestling today, sometimes you wonder if those guys were taught that. The shows are a lot different than the wrestling that you and I like. A lot of flips, a lot of dives, a lot of hardcore. Everybody does hardcore, but a lot of that. What do you think of the way that wrestling has changed over the past 20 years since you got in?
Well, I hope I don't make anybody mad, but and it's kind of that old school, mentality where when you would watch TV or you would go to the shows and you would look at these guys and they were, 6'3", 6'4", 6'7", 6'9", 7 feet, and you didn't look like them. You just marveled at how big they were and what they could do and how fast they were and how strong they were and their athleticism. And the storylines were so kind of intriguing and you knew exactly why they were doing what they were doing. And one strike or one kick meant so much. But now you have, and not knocking anyone, guys that are, kind of human size now, between 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", 6'1", 6'0", and, lighter on the, between 170 and 200 side. But the athleticism is ridiculous with some of these guys, I wish there was a kind of a middle ground, but, you're going to have one extreme or the other, and now you have it torn, like, if you like old school, then you're just, you need to catch up with the times. And if you like the new school, then you don't appreciate the past. So there's got to be some kind of middle ground, some kind of, in between, some kind of gray area where you're able to like both. I'm definitely more of a fan of the old school, that, Ricky Steamboat, against Jake Roberts or let's see, the, Heart Foundation versus the Bulldogs. It meant something. Like those the matches, I mean, they all mean something, but, the matches just were smash mouth, just made you feel what was going on in the ring. And when you, here's what's going to get me in trouble, but when you
don't worry about it.
when you take, 15 elbows to the face and then a spinning elbow and you don't bump, and then, you get whipped off the ropes and then hit with a drop kick and you immediately feet up and then into a pile driver, into a power bomb, it's not believable,
Yeah.
And we're watching basically two superheroes fight it out,
Yeah.
And if I wanted to watch that, I would just, pop in Superman.
There you go. Well, when I interviewed Dom Vitale just a few weeks ago, I mentioned what Jim Cornette said after watching SummerSlam, and it was something along the lines of, why do they even teach the wrestlers to train anymore? Why don't they just send them to Hollywood and teach them to fall off a high shit? And it's like, I hate to say it, but he makes a good point. And it's a shame.
It is, and I think the way it's been treated lately is wrestling's almost like a middle ground now, where you have something in mind, but you're gonna wrestle for a little while until you get your Hollywood shot, or you get on a game show or whatever it is. But wrestling's kind of just a stepping stone to something else.
Like a springboard.
Wrestling used to be the ultimate, goal. And I think it still should be. That should be your goal. Your goal should want to be in a big time wrestling company with, no other goal than to be the world champion. If you don't have that goal, or if you're using it as a stepping stone, or it's your heart's not going to be in it, and the people will see right through you.
Absolutely. So I've recently rediscovered Impact Zone Wrestling. I know you guys were gone for a while. After I graduated from ASU in 2006, I was a little bit off the loop, but I remember vividly watching TV one night and seeing Adrenaline Rush come on TV, and I think it was Impact Zone Wrestling, and I'm pretty sure it was from the Celebrity Theater, which is a pretty cool venue. I've been to many concerts there over the years. What was the story with the brief foray onto television that Impact Zone Wrestling had?
Well, Impact Zone Wrestling has had a couple different TV runs dating back to the Patique in, the 2002s and 3s. We had a little TV deal on I don't know what Spanish station it was, but where I worked at the time was heavily Spanish speaking, and people would come in and look at me like, and they would point and they're like, "Were you fighting on TV?" And that was always a cool feeling. And but yeah, we've had some little TV deals, and we've worked Celebrity Theater, where we've gotten a couple TV shots, and going back to the Patique, we did some with IZW at the sets, different little venues here and there. We had Championship Wrestling from Hollywood that we IZW kind of ended up adopting. So we had a few little TV deals, and we had between the way Navajo was training us and also learning how to work on TV, we treated it like it was a major TV deal. We had hard cam, and we had this and we had that. We had time cues, and we stuck to our times, and we treated it like we were big time TV.
And if it came off that way, yeah.
I'm sorry?
I said it came off that way too.
I hope so, and I wanted to be proud of our product, and I don't think, we had a product, or we had wrestlers that didn't believe in it. Everybody, it was a team effort. We were very proud of what we had. We had a very long run at the sets. We had a pretty long run at the Patique, and with times change, so you end up moving and things change, and we had a little hiatus there for a while, and and we found our way back. And I think probably stronger than ever. The guys that we have in there now, you have like an Evan Daniels and
Yes.
Magnificent and Joe Graves, God, guys that have limitless potential, that are just carrying on that tradition.
Very cool. So I was watching one of your other interviews, and you discussed when you suffered a severe neck injury and said that I believe it was your tricep or bicep that never recovered. I think a tricep. I guess my question is, what happened? What went wrong with the injury, and like, how does it feel now that you're getting in the ring after originally calling it a career a couple of years ago?
Yeah. So I broke my neck in 2009, and I used to do a little bit more like, I guess, an acrobatic style, head, front flips, head flips. I kind of emulated or tried to emulate Tajiri for a little while, bouncing off the rope. And, before I started working in Japan, where I learned a different style, but I've wrestled most of my life, and, I think it's just wear and tear. I woke up one morning, and the night before, I was wrestling Dean Radford, I wrestled. Dean Radford attacked me, wrapped the chain around my neck, threw me out of the ring. The stunt went bad. The chain linked up and started to choke me out, and finally got the chain off, and kind of went on with what we were supposed to do. And then the next day I woke up and I couldn't use my right arm to push. Wow. I went to the gym and I picked up 2 50-pound dumbbells just to warm up with for shoulder press, and my left arm went and my right arm didn't go. And I literally looked at my right arm like, what is wrong with you? You're supposed to be pushing. And I realized pretty quickly that I had no push ability with my right arm. So my tricep wasn't responding at all. My pec started to atrophy, my back started to atrophy. And at the time I was a full-time wrestler, so that was my livelihood. And eventually it got to the point where, I knew something was wrong. And it's so strange because I went to chiropractors, I went to pain specialists, I went to acupuncture. I'm getting my neck adjusted, not knowing that my neck was broken, and at any point I could have just, died. So,
wow.
I went and got it checked out. Finally, somebody suggested going to a specialist. They found that my C5 was essentially just a handful of gravel. And, then and that was February, and my surgery wasn't until July. So I was like, what the hell? I just went out and I had that attitude of, well, if this is the way I die, this is how it's supposed to be, which is not a great attitude to have, because my son was very small, but I still wanted to live that dream. I still had that dream of being signed, and even though I was approaching 40, I still had that dream, and I was still holding on to it. But the injury in itself, it I don't know if it permanently disabled my arm, but it still loses some function here and there. I'm not as strong as I am on my left side. It takes some getting adjustment period, but it's working so far. So, it's not the same size as my left, and that's partially why I wear a pad on my right arm to kind of hide that discrepancy.
I understand. Yeah. So you wrestled through what was the strangest time. It's like we all woke up in our favorite 70s sci-fi movie during the pandemic era. For a pro wrestler like you, that had to be a rough time to see live events just completely stopped. Was that the most difficult time that you experienced as an active wrestler?
It was, because, you're used to seeing your friends, your boys, the locker room, getting together, doing a show, and it went from that to nothing, and obviously the whole world changed how people treat each other, see each other, you know, going back to a live event and, you know, you cough in public and everybody looks at you like you're public enemy number one, you know.
Yep.
And I was doing the Asian Mist at the time, and that had to stop. And I actually brought it back last week, so it felt pretty good. And I felt right at home with it. But yeah, it was a very strange time because, you know, you lost those connections. Some people didn't recover and come back; they just stayed gone. You know, I think some people still, they don't really go to live events anymore. You know, it's too risky. It changed people's mentality on how they do life.
It did. For me, it was the opposite. For me, I hadn't been to an independent wrestling show in Arizona in probably 15 years. And I was like, you know what? They're starting to do stuff again. I'm going to be there. And that's kind of how I feel about it. And I hope that more people kind of side with my viewpoint on it, because we need to get Arizona, with the growth of population that we've had, we need to make as many of these independent promotions succeed out here as we possibly can, because there's certainly enough pie for everybody to have a slice. What do you think about the growth of population in Arizona and the fact that there are starting to be some promotions that are thriving? IZW, I mentioned PCW. Hope that's not mentioning enemy turf, but
no,
everybody seems to be doing pretty good.
I actually looked at a list the other day of the top 25 fastest growing cities. Phoenix was number one, and then you had Mesa, Gilbert, and then some other ones. But there were 6 out of the 25 that were Arizona alone, and I guess we'd consider Metro Phoenix. And it's you know, insane how big Arizona is going to be, and the potential that Arizona has to produce good wrestling. And I would argue that, and maybe it's just me being biased, but I would argue that in that early 2000s period to probably 2010, Arizona probably had one of the strongest crops of wrestlers around. You know, I think we could have put ourselves up against anyone and done really well, but the potential is ridiculous. And you know, IZW is doing their thing, and you know, it's nostalgic, and you know, we've been around for 20 years. Dom's Phoenix promotion is absolutely killing it, and they've had sellout crowds with over 1,000 people, and he's producing incredible athletes in that same vein of old school style, you know, wrestling. And you know, it's cool to just see those wrestlers have that mentality. And I hope it comes back around. You know, everything's kind of cyclical, you know, so I'm hoping wrestling kind of goes back in that direction. But you mentioned Dom being an enemy. No, not at all. He's completely supportive. We've crossed a few times. He's had me on his shows before I, you know, stopped. And it's, you know, watching him, and then you have a couple other promotions. It's just a shame that, like, you know, there's the politics involved, but you know, egos are always going to be involved, and that's just the way the games are going to be played. But when you have somebody with the mind of somebody like Dom and Gallo and Navajo, and you know, the guys they're bringing up, you know, this wrestling's going to be safe for a while in Arizona.
Absolutely. I hope you're right. I think you are right too, because I see a lot of excitement when I go to these shows, and like I said, I hadn't for a while, and I was a little embarrassed because I should have been there for you guys sooner. But I appreciate what you guys are doing. Do you have time for just a couple more? Then I promise I'll let you get some dinner.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So recently, the same night that you were in the ring with Navajo, there was an event in California. And I want to get your take on what happened, because it's kind of the most watched independent wrestling match of all time at this point. Of course, I'm speaking about the Raja Jackson, the son of Rampage Jackson, and the incident that occurred in the ring with Psycho Steve. It was uncomfortable to watch, and I always tell people, they say I'm in the business, I say I'm on the razor's edge between being a fan and being in, because I've never wrestled a match. I have no arrogance about me with that, but watching that, even my blood boiled. What did you think of what happened there? And there you go, that's the question.
yeah, obviously it's kind of taken over wrestling the last week, but from what happened in the beginning with the can incident and not understanding, like Roger Jackson not understanding what was going on, and then apparently they made up and apologized, and that should have been where it stopped. And I don't know if a spot was planned. I keep hearing mixed messages about if the spot was planned for him to come in, but you trust your body with who you're in there with, and then for that to be taken advantage of, to be picked up in a double leg, slammed, hit his head, knocked himself out, followed up with multiple unprotected shots, you know, it's very sad, and I think it would make anyone incredibly mad. And I don't know if there's different things you could blame, like, is it a mental illness? Was he, you know what I mean? I'm not saying he was, but was he just intoxicated? Was he unstable? Was he, like, you know what I mean? Like, to go in there under that false pretense of, like, it's going to be a spot turned into a shoot, into a very dangerous position. Like I said, you go in there trusting somebody with your life, and you know, when one's almost taken, there's got to be consequences, you know. And if Psycho Stu, you know, initiated it with the can, it was a very awkward looking beginning, and the end, like, there was no excuse for his actions. That could have been taken care of in the back, and it was uncalled for, it was unnecessary, and it was very, very uncomfortable to watch. And you know, that could be anybody. It could be your friends. It could be anybody that was on that receiving end, and it's very sad.
I gotta say, I can't imagine something like that occurring in an IZW ring. I just don't think that is something that would ever occur with you guys.
Well, like, I kind of touched on, you know, egos get bruised, and there's been a couple little incidents where things started to bubble up, and we were able to control it a little bit better than that. You know, there's two that I can remember pretty vividly that I wasn't directly involved in, but I was in the ring for one, and you know, we tried to cover it up as best we could. We kind of, like, you know, glossed it over and went on about it. The second one was just as uncomfortable as you're kind of watching helplessly from the back, and you know, you get an opportunity to go out there and then, you know, help out, where even the crowd was like, what the hell's going on, you know, and then we kind of just rolled it into the show. So it wasn't anything like that, but it was pretty uncomfortable. But things are going to play out like that, where, again, you know, life seeps into art, and it gets a really big gray area. So I think things should be taken care of in the back, outside, not outside, like in that, you know, you either talk it out and be like, look, this is what the situation is. Either apologize and move on, or understand that, like, you know, when we're in that ring, we're here for business, or never pair them together, you know. And it's sad when it happens, but it happens. And again, when you have egos, we're supposed to have egos, you know. We're supposed to have, you know, big characters and big personalities. And sometimes when your character gets lost in you, it's hard to make those judgment calls. And sometimes you just can't de-escalate yourself and figure out who's who.
Absolutely. Well said. I think that was a really interesting take. So a couple years ago, you decided that you were going to step away from the ring. Like I said, I watched a couple of interviews that I found on YouTube, and it seemed like you were serious, that this was over. You didn't want to do this anymore. What led you to that decision a couple years ago to step away?
Well, I got started late as it was, I didn't start training till I was 30 years old, and I wasn't going to let that get in the way, you know. And then I started creeping into my 50s. The pandemic changed my career, and my family had some health issues going on, and it was just getting to where I wasn't happy with how I was performing, and I knew I was getting older, but I still wanted to be part of it. But my in-ring work was not where I wanted it to be. I was getting unhealthy at an unhealthy weight, you know, and again, the pandemic happened. And then when we came back, I think I was just like, my heart wasn't truly in it, because I thought I was bringing the show kind of down, where we had so many up-and-comers, and I felt like I was just taking up a spot that somebody else could have. That was kind of my maybe depression talking. And then some life changes happened recently in the last few months, and I missed it. I got to the point where I missed it. I started changing some lifestyle habits, and I felt so much better, and I felt like I can kind of keep up again. And you know, I had talked to Navajo Warrior and Greg DeMarco about coming back, and they trusted it enough to bring me back in, to be backstage a couple times, and then start working again. And the first match I got was that, you know, Mike Knox in Hollywood, and it just felt like it felt like 2002 again, where I first started. You know, those guys were my trainers coming up and some of my first opponents, and I felt like I was home.
Absolutely.
So I was very happy.
You've mentioned your age, and I got to tell you, you are the most youthful. Whatever the number might be, I would not have put you north of 50. I'll say that about you.
Well, I am, unfortunately, but you know, I've always felt good, and like I said, when I wasn't performing where I wanted to perform at, I knew I had to step back and make some changes, and unfortunately, life got in the way. But when those changes started to work themselves out, you know, things started to fall back into place, and you're starting to feel better and realize, you know, how much you did miss it, because there's nothing like being in that ring and performing and hearing somebody react to something you did, seeing pictures of faces of fans when, you know, when I would be suplexing a 300-pound dude through the air, you know, and it's just, it's intoxicating. You can't escape it. It's literally a drug that if you go without it too long, you really miss it.
Yep.
You know,
I agree.
And that's exactly what happens.
All right. Just a couple more, then I promise I'll let you go. It was really cool to see the emotion. Mike Knox was in tears. That really struck me. Seeing Mike Knox in tears, you know, paying homage to Navajo, who's calling it a career after influencing countless amounts of careers. That means a lot. I mean, I'm a military brat myself. I know you're ex-military. I don't have a problem admitting that, you know, you get the lump in your throat when you see grown men care so much about each other. And that was really, really special. There's an obvious brotherhood between the original IZW guys.
Well, we were together all the time. I mean, we were training all the time, and it was competitive. And we have guys like, you know, Triple X Lawrence Tyler, and Mike Knox and Gallo, and we wanted to be better than each other, you know, but we knew we needed each other to be better, and there's a respect there. And then I wanted to outwork everybody, and everybody wanted to work out everybody else, you know. But you know, it's you know, being in the military, you know, it's almost like going to war every day. But it's going to war with a common purpose, you know. And when you are behind a product like we were, Navajo's IZW, we're gonna make this successful. We're gonna make this work. We're gonna outwork each other every match, but we're going to support each other during every match. And when Mike did that, and I saw the emotion in his face, and again, like I said, it was like the old days, and I just, I dropped down with Mike, Hollywood dropped down, and it was such a good moment, because it's just, it can't be replicated. That was so genuine, and you forget that you're in a ring, in gear, and you just are with your friends that you've known for 20 years, and we pretty much, as soon as I saw Mike, it flooded back feelings, and it just felt like you're ready to go, and nothing can stop that. And that was such a good moment, that I'm so proud to be part of that.
Absolutely.
And I hope. Go ahead.
Like I said, I was at a number of those set shows. I was just a fan being there, just like I was a fan there at Bullshooters. And man, it's pretty cool. 20 years later, there you guys are, and very cool to see. So we have one more stop on Navajo's last mile tour, and that is going to conclude with Samoa Joe standing at the end of that last mile. You're going to be getting back in the ring at the King. Long Live the King, sorry. What's your thoughts heading into IZW Long Live the King this November?
Well, Navajo was there for me when I retired, and I don't think I would be anywhere else when he does. And I don't think people really understand how many lives and careers that Navajo's touched, along the way. And, for Samoa Joe to be coming in to do this honor of being his last match, knowing that, they were involved so early in his career, that it's literally, things are coming full circle. And, it's so cool to, be part of it. I think that's the only place I could be that night is at that show. And it's kind of funny with Samoa Joe, because my first match was supposed to be Samoa Joe. And I didn't know too much about indie wrestling or, wrestling in Japan. And then he, told me to look up some stuff with Samoa Joe in it. And I was like, do you hate me? Why is this guy my first match? Do you want me to die my first day in the ring? And, but, for Joe to, be able to come in and do this show, what it means for somebody like that, who's a name to be coming to a small show like we run, but, we have just as much energy as anybody. It's a big honor, and I think it's going to be an incredible show. And if you miss it, you're definitely missing out on something special.
Very cool. And of course, you're going to be getting back together with Gabriel Gallo one more time with you guys together, at least one more time, hopefully more than that. So it's going to be very cool to see that. Long Live the King. Tickets are available now at izwtix.com. They're selling pretty quick from what I was told, and I hope that continues to be the trend for you guys. You guys are keeping my love of wrestling going. I'm going to be honest with you. I am fed up with everything that's on my TV. I don't like it like I used to. I find myself watching as much old school stuff as I can. But you guys have managed to keep the fire burning a little bit. Keep the fan in me going. Seeing what you guys are doing at IZW. I will praise the other guys too in the local area. But IZW is the tried and true, long-standing guys. And I want to thank you for doing what you do, for coming back to do what you do, and for taking the time and doing this with me. I really do appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, and I'll proudly wear the Tribe Mania shirt that my wife purchased with pride now.
that was another honor too. So I hope you wear it, and I hope you wear it out.
I told Navajo this. I said I normally wouldn't buy something that was inspired by Hulkamania unless Hulk was involved. I am like the biggest Hulkamaniac in the world. So for me, it's like, oh, that's sacrilege. That's not really Hulk stuff. But I know how much Hulk meant to Nav. And it's like, yeah, I'm cool with that. I'll wear that with pride. So that's awesome.
That's what's inspired, and I would have to disagree with you. I don't think you are the biggest Hulkamaniac, because I would argue that Navajo is one of the biggest Hulkamaniacs.
Yeah,
so I'll let you guys fight it out.
He went to the funeral. I mean, I told him how much that meant to me that he went there, because that if I had the means, I would have been there too if they would have let me in. But so anyway, I appreciate you. I'll let you get some dinner, and I'll let you know when I get this up online. Thank you for taking so much time to do this with me.
Thank you.
Have a good night, sir. And by the way, thank you for your service as well.
Oh, you too. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Always awkward when I hang up these things. All right, I'll click the hang up buttons. I really do appreciate your time, though. And I hope that was okay. Was that good?
No, that was great. It's I wasn't sure if we were like working or shooting or what, the deal was, but I think they're always better when you're talking more from the heart than, as a character.
I had a string of interviews that I was making the guys cry, and I don't know why. Like, I had Tyrus on the phone, and he was literally blubbering about Dusty Rhodes, and I'm like, what am I doing? Why did I become the Barbara Walters of wrestling interviews? But so hopefully I didn't do that to you, but I do appreciate you hanging with me and rolling with the punches with me.
Well, it definitely brought up some good memories, some bad ones, but I wouldn't say bad ones, but there was some good times in there. So thank you.
This is Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, for us.
Featuring the interactive interview.
Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Oh yeah.
Formerly The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze rock.
Yo, maniacs, so what you gonna do when a Blaze of Maniacs runs wild on you?
On WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter. The Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
And now we shamelessly name drop from our history.
The Wrestling Epicenter would like to apologize for the following.
All right, everybody. Viva la raza. Viva la raza.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, ladies.
Hey, guys. We had a lovely conversation. First lady. Absolutely. Oh, look at me. She's so kooky.
Be there. Where else?
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Oh, my God. You win. Love being interactive.
Whoa. I just got some noise. I was gonna shoot him. Yeah, I almost missed my pants. Breaking neck. I got 2 words for you. I've heard a lot about you guys. But here, let's go. I see my language. You're gonna go to the shop. See him now. We're into the many.
No nerves.
That was great. It's gonna be cool. Woo. What it's all about. The purest point of the living legend. Roger Rowan. Arrogant.
You're listening to me.
Instead of statement, I'm talking to you.
So Lindley without you.
In the land of extreme.
Testify. Nevermore. Interactive interview. I'm not just the best. Interactive interview with a plastic
You
head.
earned the right.
Nobody. You better keep listening. Thank you very much. Controversy creates cash. Professional wrestling.
Made in the USA, baby.
Memphis wrestling. The guy on fire. I'm not
We were sexy.
What a show.
The one and only.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Interactive interview. We took care of the business. This isn't ballet. We are huge with this whole. You're where it's at. You gotta recognize who's the best. If you're smart, make sure you tune in each and every week. I'll come out of your computer. Knock down your door and turn it on for you. Or else I'm gonna kick your stinking teeth in. And that's the bottom line.
Have a nice day.
It's showtime!
Don't forget to like and subscribe.